seen have you ever seen some footprints in the woods and it told you exactly what happened there? Maybe you have seen plants being eaten, and then you look down and you see footprints from deer, or you see rabbit footprints. Mostly in the winter, you can see footprints really easily because they're in the snow, but sometimes in the spring, if you get to some soft ground or some mud or maybe sand on a beach that's relatively wet, you can see footprints of the animals that have been there. And so I'd like you to take a look here and tell me what you think might have happened just by knowing this, just by seeing this evidence. What do you think happened? Please raise your hand if you have an idea. Okay, so hopefully your idea was that some form of bird, because you know these are little tiny bird tracks, right? Was walking, minding his own business, and then some wolf, like maybe from the wolf pack, came and they had some kind of scuffle because only one set of footprints leaves the scene. So probably what you thought is that a bird came and it was hanging out, walking along, and a wolf came and they had a little scuffle and the wolf ate the bird, right? This didn't actually, we can't see that it happened, but we definitely know that only one animal left that scene, and there's evidence of two animals, right? So that's a lot about how scientists, that's kind of what they do. They piece things together about here's what we do know, here's what we don't know. They take what they do know and compare it to things that they don't know, and then they try and fit the puzzle pieces together. We do know that birds have little light footprints, and some of them have just 3 toes when they walk. We do know that these are wolf footprints because we've seen them in the dirt. We've actually followed a wolf around and looked at their prints. And when we see those prints, actually humans should be like a little bit alert if there's wolf footprints where you're at in the woods. Okay, so even though we weren't here when this happened, we know that this poor bird probably isn't gonna make it. Okay. Our learning target today begins on page 90. Please make sure you start with highlighting page 90. Our learning target is I can compare modern and fossil organisms to infer anatomic evolutionary relationships. Whew, that's a big one. Anatomic means like anatomy, like bones and structure of a body. And evolutionary relationships means that something is related to another and maybe has changed or adapted, right? So our key term today is evolution. And the definition for evolution is the theory based on the idea that all species are related and gradually change over time. Now, am I asking you to believe in evolution? No. Am I asking you to change your belief? No. What I would like you to do is be able to have a decent discussion about evolution and the ideas that support it or ideas that don't support it, and actually know what the theory of evolution is. So with that, we will be looking at things that have happened millions of years ago. And we're going to talk about how scientists use that information and the information that we have. And they try and fit fossils into what we know right now of everyday Earth and modern day life, right? So that's pretty much what you guys just did. You guys just were like, what do I know about these footprints? I know that these are probably birds. I know for sure that these are a wolf. I don't know what kind of bird this is. I do know that one bird is no longer here. And the wolf walked away on its own. Maybe it just carried the bird home. I don't know. Maybe they were buddies. I doubt it because you and I do know that wolves would eat a bird, right? So we take the things that we know and we apply them to our situations. So what you're going to do today in this section is you are going to take a bunch of bones from a fossil. This is a very ancient creature, but it's very small, okay? And you're going to take these bones and you're going to try and assemble them into another creature that you might be familiar with. And you already know some things about animals. For example, if an animal has sharp claws, what What do you know about the food that that animal eats? I'll look for a raised hand here. Well, if you guessed that the animal ate something made out of meat or another animal because it has claws to grip, you are correct. Okay, so what else do you think you could tell me from these bones? Just tell me one thing. Raise your hand if you think you know one thing. Okay, so what you probably know is that there's some kind of tail. You probably know that this is maybe a backbone and some ribs. You probably know that this is a foot or an arm or a leg, and maybe this one is too. And they definitely had claws, so it ate meat. You don't have a lot of the jawbone here, but you can see where the eyes are on the skull. Okay, so try and put that together into a shape into the shape of a fossil or a skeleton that you might know about, okay? If you scroll down in the lab, so there'll be a lab, and I'll give you some examples of some fossils that are some modern day creatures that might be relative of this creature, and I'll ask you some questions about it in the lab. And then I'm going to ask you, what modern organism does this fossil resemble? And please explain why or why not you think they could be related, okay? All right. So that's for page 90. On page 91, I would ask you to please define the term fossils. And we're going to look into being able to explain how it's possible for scientists to study animals or plants that existed millions of years ago. Our first term is fossils. Say it with me. Fossils. And the fossil is a preserved remains or traces of remains of ancient organisms. And a lot of times, really, this is all about, let me see, I'm like not in the middle here. It's driving me crazy. Okay, there we go. A lot of times, fossils are all about the hard parts of organisms that have been preserved. The teeth and the bones and the claws, those things have been preserved, okay? But there's another kind of fossil that you should be aware of. So there's body fossils, which we just refer to as fossils. There are other kinds called trace fossils. Say that with me, trace fossil. And those are geological records of biological activity. That's a mouthful. Geological records of biological activity. So geological really just means like earth and rocks and stone, so preserved stone. And biological activity just means life, activity of life, okay? And a trace fossil is something that we look at, might be a footprint that got preserved in mud and is now stone. It might be fossilized dinosaur eggs. It might be fossilized poop, okay? And we can learn all kinds of cool things about organisms, even plants, the maybe petrified trees, or maybe there was an imprint of animal skin or something like that. You know, the skin has been gone for millions of years, but there's a print in the mud, or there's footprints in the mud that have been preserved, or a print of a leaf that was preserved. And those things are called trace fossils. So it left behind a trace that it existed, okay? So as you're going today, you're going to watch a couple of videos, and I would like you to figure out 3 to 5 examples of trace fossils. Of course, 5 is better than 3, but if you can only find 3, don't struggle too long. Okay, and then you're going to watch a video by Bill Nye talking about fossils, and it will like bring a lot of this together for you. And I'm going to ask, what is the difference between fossils and trace fossils? And why is it important for scientists to be able to study both types of fossil evidence, like body fossils and trace fossils? So those things I really want you to think about while you're working on page 90 and 91. You will have to submit information regarding the lab. So make sure you do the lab and make sure you read the information or listen to me read it to you, and make sure you watch the videos. And have a lot of fun trying to put those bones together. And remember, there's not exactly one right way to do it, because when scientists find fossils and bones, they just put them together, and no one tells them how to put them together. They just use what they know. So at the end of our lesson today, you will need to submit notebook page 90. Oh, sorry, not submit, complete notebook page 90, complete notebook page 91, and you need to submit answers from the fossil reconstruction lab. All right, enjoy.